Paul Struthers, Chief Executive of the PJA, is in the studio all evening. Is there any other aspects of your job or the PJA that you can see areas you need to work on?
Yeah, I mean, the first one, which is a pretty simple one, but it's one that we've traditionally struggled with, is around the comms side of things, just with the members. You know, it's as recent as 2 or 3 years ago. A jockey retired, we never even wrote to them. You know, you never even wrote to them to say congratulations on your career. So we've started doing that. We're about to launch, we will at some point over the next few months launch a new website, new members handbook. We'll be launching WhatsApp broadcast groups for the different categories of membership. So that's quite big. Communicating with sportsmen and women is difficult. I sit on the Professional Players Federation, and all the other sports struggle with it. The Cricketers Association, rugby players, and particularly for jockeys, they're working all hours. They're in the car. When they've got some downtime, they want to have downtime. They don't want to be spending time reading anything we've sent them. That's big. I think the future of the sport, and we're involved in that, and where the sport's going, and there's been stuff in the papers this week about income from betting and what the media companies are looking to do.
Bet per view.
Yeah, and the impact that has on stable staff and jockeys earnings. You know, jockeys, we touched on it with Robbie Downey. Jockeys do not earn as much as people think. Everyone thinks they get 10% of prize money. They do not. It's probably slightly under 7% when they win a race on the flat. 3%, maybe even less if they're placed. That's a big issue going forward. But equally, for jockeys to get more, it pretty much means someone else has got to get less. So that's the kind of roadblock that we always come up against. And it's the PJA's 50th anniversary this year. And Anne Saunders, who's worked for us for 43 years, has been going back through all the old minute books and looking at the key issues that we've had. And jockeys' earnings has been a huge one. We estimate that the average jockey, and by average, you're stripping out jockeys that haven't even had 50 rides, so you're not including young jockeys that have only had 1 or 2. Average jockey earnings from race riding is probably about 25 grand a year before tax. Which lots of people go, 25 grand a year, that's fine. But they're not looking at the hours they're doing, you know, the up early in the morning.
Risk factor.
The volume of evening racing, there really isn't a break, and that's a major issue for us. Egan Conlon, who was former conditional jockey, you know him. Egan's done his degree in psychology, he's done his master's in psychology, and he's now doing his PhD. He's been supported by the Jets scholarship scheme through that. Egan's done some research that shows jockeys are suffering burnout at a 40% higher rate than any other sport. Dale Gibson's done a load of good work. We've got a flat jockeys break now. They're only 2, and they're only 5 days, which jockeys scoffed at. Our point was, you've got to start somewhere. To go from 0 to 2 weeks isn't going to happen, but let's get 5 days in and let's try and expand it. So that and the impact of the fixture list on the welfare of the sports and the people putting the show on the road is significant.
There is a rule that jockeys can only ride 9 meetings a week. But it's a rule that where, for example, jockeys, many of them do ride in Germany on a Sunday, Scandinavia on a Sunday, Ireland on a Sunday. That doesn't count as one. Yeah. Where the 9 meetings are just sort of the UK meetings.
It's a very blunt instrument, the 9 meetings rule, and there are anomalies to it. You could drive from Lambourne to Ayr. You know, young jockey, worked all morning, drives up for an evening meeting, required back in the yard the next morning, so it has his right, drives home. Is that more dangerous than going at Lingfield in an afternoon, Kempton in an evening, back up tomorrow and doing the reverse? No, I don't know what the members would feel about it, and it's a conversation we'll have to have over the coming months. One of my predecessors, I think it was Kevin George, advocated 1 meeting a day. Yeah. I believe 1 meeting a day would benefit most jockeys, both physically and mentally and financially. I think if you could only attend 1 meeting a day, there'd be more rides to go around at those meetings. So many jockeys now are going racing for 1 ride. It's really struggled to make that pay. But it's not up to me. You know, I will try and convince our members of anything we think is the right thing to do. But ultimately, I answer to our board. which is populated by retired jockeys like George and active jockeys who in turn answer to the membership. So it's not my call. We'll run some figures on it and over the coming months, but I know it's something George feels strongly about, and I have a lot of sympathy with it.
What's your thoughts, George?
So I was, when the 9 meeting rule come in, I was one of those that hadn't really thought about the bigger picture, and was like, we should be able to do as many meetings a week as we need to do, and now when I sit back and reflect on that, I think it will cause uproar early doors, and there'll be people that go, we should be able to do what we want. If we're riding at Lingfield, why can't we call it Kempton on the way home? But I think about the bigger picture is it will benefit everyone. It will mean that you're just doing 1 meeting a day. It will benefit everyone in the industry. It will mean you cater your time better, and it will improve the longevity of jockeys, and will help with all the subjects we've talked about, and make an easier process. And you know what it's like, Niall, booking people's rides. They are rushing around 24/7. And
you talk about a Friday. It's impossible to double up unless you're flying.
Yeah.
But it's nearly getting to the stage now. The roads are so poor because it's hard to do.
Yeah, the traffic's brutal in this country, and you speak to jockeys and you look at the comments that come through from the research, both Agen's and the comments from the racing welfare research on mental health. And the number one thing that impacts, there's lots of other things that do, but the number one is just the grind. The just
weight
constant,
and miles.
Yeah, the constant relentlessness of making weight, getting up the next morning, riding work, getting in the car. The fact it's a losing sport, as you say. I mean, O'Sheen's losing 73% of the time, and he's right at the top of the tree. Most are losing 95-90% of the time. It's really unique. There are very few other sports, very few that are like that. The difficulty will be, and you'd speak to Martin about this next week, because Martin would be one of the ones that say, no, he already hates the 9 meeting rule, so to impinge on that even more I know it would cause me issues. It's a very flat specific issue. I think there's maybe 5 times in the year that a jump jockey might be able to ride at 2 meetings, except on those days when there's 2, maybe, and you see it very rarely, when a jump jockey's getting a helicopter between fixtures to ride in the big race at, say, Wincanton, and then get to Newbury to ride there. So, there'd be that impact as well. So it's really, really interesting area.
The last few years, Stobart had the career ending. That's about to end, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, Stobart have been the most amazing supporter, but every sponsorship comes to an end. So our deal with Stobart ended at the end of September.
Is that a worry?
Yeah, it's a huge worry. It's all of the money we got from Stobart paid for the jockey's career-ending insurance scheme, and that's an expensive insurance policy. And I'm well aware there's mixed views of what that policy is worth, but I think that's predicated on a misunderstanding of what it's designed for. It's designed for a career-ending but non-life-changing injury, and to effectively help a jockey out financially just whilst they're transitioning, because the overwhelming majority of jockeys, it's very, very few, probably count on 2 hands how many jockeys wouldn't have to work again after retirement. They're few and far between. Because jockeys also have a capital claims insurance element through PRIS, for life-changing injuries. The PJA, so the board of the PJA is funding itself from its reserves the next 6 months. So jockeys will be covered under this policy until the end of March. But if we don't find another sponsor, there is no way of us continuing to pay that sum of money. It is very, very expensive policy. But those jockeys, we've paid, in the 8 years we've had this policy in place, we've paid over 1.4 million to 20 odd jockeys, and varying amounts. This isn't a life-changing sum. It's not a sum that's designed to set you up for a life. It's a sum that's designed to
give you that bridge,
give you that breathing space. Bearing in mind, jockeys who are career-ended will get paid for 78 weeks temporary disablement on PRIS as well. And look, we are looking for a new sponsor. It's a valuable sponsorship. It's expensive. The sponsorship market is really tough at the moment, but we are the only sponsorship that goes across every track with really high visibility. 90% of jockeys wearing the logo. There's more we can do as a PJ to activate that insurance. So we're searching and we're hopeful, but yeah, it's hugely important.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully that will. Hopefully, you'll be able to get someone.
Yeah.
Might be as easy said.
It's not, as you know,
Yeah.
if
So
it
I honestly believe this. I'll never forget when we were having the debate about Stobart should be giving us more. Now I'm sat on the board with the PJA, trying to find someone to replace it. It's been impossible. It's very difficult. You've had lots of people saying that they're interested in it and they just don't follow through with it. So it's a massive problem.
Yeah, and look, I've sat in jockeys' changing rooms, not just randomly sat there, and spoken to jockeys who are going, you guys aren't getting enough money for this. This policy's no good. Well, we've had this scheme and this sponsorship independently valued, and it's fair value for a sponsor. And you know, I think it's a really good offering to a sponsor. So fingers crossed we can get one.